If I'm sharing my screen and it.
I get you. And of course, my device wants to restart too.
No.
Where people can do
It says left behind. Should I wait to let people in?
Well.
We'll take care of the room.
I know not everyone's back. How many people do we have online? 41, and people are online like, well, we're gonna start anyway. Okay, so we know not everyone's back in this room. But we'll share the slides and the notes for later. So welcome back. This is the main part of the meeting, because I know, yes, this morning we went over a little bit of time, and then anyway, most importantly is I let you out here before rush hour, right? So we're going. Just saying, I prefer to. There we go. Okay. The agenda then, updated school calendar, early warning system, EBOS rollouts, Utrecht's collections items that we'll be going through. So there's the remainder of the meeting of this afternoon. Okay, couple announcements. Make sure you are aware of this. Each year, USB creates statewide school calendars for both the districts and for the charters. Here's an example on the website of what that looks like. Some of you might not care. What happens though is we get a lot of requests from media outlets to different special organizations. They want to say,
Oh, sorry.
thank you. They want to see at a glance, hey, what's the state of Utah where everyone's at? What's their schedule? So understand that that is what this is for. I'm just kind of going over and refreshing the memory. To find that file, if you're interested, it's in two places. You can either go to the data gateway, down to the reference library, click on it, says LEA calendars, that takes you to there. Or you can go to the, excuse me, and this is its main home, is the USBE's website. So schools.utah.gov. You click on schools and education, go down to school calendars. As you can see, those arrows, those are where the reports are. So every year, each LEA needs to submit next year's calendar. The due date is Friday, June 12th. Some of you are already done. Use the data gateway calendar tool to make sure you get that information sent in. There is a PDF that we'll be sending out that kind of goes through the step-by-step inside of the data gateway of how to go in and enter that information. You do need to have that role permission given to the individual or individuals who go in and add that information. I don't believe the LEA admin gives you automatic access to it. But was that? Yes, yeah. It's basically school calendar. It's calendar. I think is what it's called. So you can assign it anytime going. Hey. The early warning system. We talked about this when it began presented on Panorama and such. In 2024 legislative session, right? Yes. It was HB, I think I actually have the notes in there, but anyway. HB 54, if I'm misquoting that, I apologize, but basically law passed. It says every LEA, every school needs to have an early warning system. And basically what it does is flag this, the students. It's for the counselors, for the principals, for the teachers. When do you need to make sure you have an intervention in place? A lot of times we actually call this an MTSS management tool. But just giving you the heads up or information about this. The technical team, so this is what I'm talking about, all of you. You should ensure that the early warning system ingests and displays all the assessments, national, local, the state standard assessment. So everything within your SIS system should be able to feed into this. You should also make sure that there's a daily tracking or intake of the attendance, of the behavior, and all the courses that go into this system. I hope this is not a surprise to anyone. Again, you're not the typical audience that we talk to about this, but you might be involved with this a little bit. The state has put out a contract. It took us almost 2 years to get this in place. But Panorama Education and the Student Success is the current state's contracting vendor. It will be a 5-year contract with extension options inside of there. The LEAs are responsible for paying 50% of the cost to access the software. LEAs may use a different platform if the platform accomplishes the same requirements found in, and this is the law, 2024 HB 84. Questions?
That 5-year agreement Panorama, is that, are you, a new one that's just, because Panorama's been in the system for a while? Right?
Yes.
So are you?
There's a new one.
There's a new one, okay.
Okay, so to repeat the question online so they can hear it, it says, hey, some of us have been on Panorama. I'm just stating, Panorama has been a pilot program for, there's about 360, 50, somewhere in there. Schools have been using it for the past, I think, almost 7 years. This is a brand new contract that we put in place. It's a new 5-year contract. I have to think through a couple things. Sorry. So contract signed, it's in place. We're in the process of actually reaching out to the LEAs. Again, not you, unless you wear multiple hats, but informing the student services department or the superintendents or, you know, the curriculum, could be the, I don't know. We're reaching out to multiples, and I'm not the main person on the announcement and the information sharing on this, but again, every LEA needs to have one. We are collecting through Qualtrics which early warning system you're using, and then that's how we will distribute the funds to the LEAs via the grant management system. What does this mean to you guys? Hopefully not a lot. But again, probably depends on the size of your LEA, because if you wear multiple hats, you might be involved with this. If you're a huge LEA, you're like, well, whatever, you know.
The question.
Question, go ahead, read it.
Do you want me to? Okay.
No, just that one, I'll repeat
Have
it.
any other systems that meet the requirements been found?
Okay, so the question is, if any of the other software, we change the word, that meet the system been found? The answer is no. USBE or the state haven't gone out and evaluated any other programs. LEAs, as long as you follow what's on the board right here, which says, well, when I go back a page, as long as you are in adherence with these law regulations, which is the assessments, the attendance behavior, and the course classes, as long as it's ingesting all that and displaying the information and is allowing for intervention to happen, then it doesn't matter the software that you're using. There's the answer. Did we find one that works? Well, there's lots. And when I say lots, their LEAs are doing their own, they're different SIS themselves say we can do this. The answer is that is determined upon your team if you are going to use them or not. The state doesn't pay for those though. When I say state doesn't pay half. And I know, for example, Davis School District was building their own. I think Salt Lake was building their own. Again, just an announcement, this information is moving forward, okay? Any questions on that? Other questions on the early warning system? Okay, Teacher Merit Award. Maybe you're involved with this, maybe you're not. Some of you are. So USU as the Center for the Schools of the Future. Oftentimes it's just CSF, if you see that acronym. The program is called Excellence in Education and Leadership Supplement. And there are participating schools in this Teacher Merit Award, or TMA. If you're involved with that, you will receive your training directly from the center. However, all teachers in Utah will have access to this resource. Well, what is this resource? Basically, it's looking at students and it's taking all of their, basically all of their data. It's not all, but a majority of their data. And it's being put into SAS's EVOS system. Acronyms galore here. So SAS, I don't know what it stands for. It's a statistical software company. So there's SAS, there's, and what else is there? Stata, there's SPSS, R, there's lots of languages out there, right? SAS is a proprietary one. It's a very big one. They're using lots of things, and they have a division called EVOS. All of the student information gets fed inside of there, and they do some statistical calculations on the students, and they produce a VAM, more acronyms, value added measure. What does the M stand for in the VAM?
Value added model.
Value added model, VAM. Anyway, Utah typically uses the SGP to calculate growth on the student. The VAM tries to get a little bit more and trying to determine what value can you attribute to the growth of the student to the teacher. So just know that this is coming out. Training will become available later on. It will be available for everyone in the state. So that is set up and moving forward. It's not ready for release yet. I will be sharing that information when I have it. But just be aware that this information is there. If you are currently, like going back, if you're currently in one of the TMA programs, you'll get your training directly from the center. The rest of the state will make it available for them. It's not necessary. There was a law, let me restate that, there was a bill that allowed for teachers to opt into it, and that was going to be the mechanism for that to work. That bill did not pass. But the option for all teachers to have access to it is still there, and we're moving forward with that. And it should be released later this summer. And if all of that just went over your head, that's okay. You're like, I don't care. That's probably not your responsibility within the district or the charter school anyway, but just be aware that that's what's coming on. So, did I miss anything? Any questions on that one other than what? But it's just another huge project that's going on, all kinds of data privacy and user agreements put in place and such. So went the wrong way. Okay. What's that?
Okay, I just have a couple quick announcements about some Utrex housekeeping items. So for those that are newer, I just want you to pay particular attention to the date. It seems far away, but it comes up quick as we hit the end of the school year, and as well as those that are not new. So the deadline to finalize this year's year-end data submission in Utrex is on July 7th, which is a Tuesday. And we ask that that be submitted by 5 p.m. So please mark that in your calendars. If you, as the Utrex submitter, are not going to be in town or cannot get it done on that particular day, the window will be open to finalize for 3 weeks. So you can basically finalize your year-end data. It's tentatively set to open on Monday, June 15th. So there's 3 full weeks to get your data finalized, but the 7th is the absolute drop dead deadline. There's very rare circumstances when we will have extensions. We're not going to talk about that today, but that's pretty rare, and that's when there's technical problems, and we will work with you on that. But for 99% of LEAs, the 7th is the deadline. So keep that in mind. Historical updates are always due 2 weeks prior to that. We don't see as many historical updates at year end as we do in October, but just something to keep in mind if you are going to have those. to get those in 2 weeks prior to July 7th. And then our team, data and statistics, we will begin what we call the courtesy data reviews. It's basically we used to call it a soft audit. We quit using that word. We're not auditors. We just know the data pretty well, and we provide a courtesy look at your data, focusing on all of the data points that affect funding, important reporting, anything that's going to be a big impact for your LEA if you submit it incorrectly. So we do that for everybody. We will start this year after Memorial Day. We've tried doing it earlier in past years, and we don't find that it's as effective, just because unless your schools have hit that last day of school, membership doesn't always show up correctly, and so then the courtesy review isn't as helpful. Other reasons are your raw goal and Acadience errors won't come through yet if you haven't finished the last day of school. So we do prioritize, as Riley had commented in the chat, we prioritize LEAs that end school first, just so that they can get working on their data as their school year finishes. So if you don't finish your school year until later than other LEAs, that's why you'll probably not get your letter until that point. For the most part, we'll send all of those out within that 2-week period following Memorial Day. So it's the very end of May, first week of June. Okay, I'll take some questions. Stacy?
If you want us to, if we would prefer that you wait, because we got a lot of crap that we gotta check between now and then, and it's almost a waste of time because you're checking data that's gonna be changing. Can we just email you and say, hey, don't do it before June 6th or something?
Yes.
Would that be a good thing?
Yes, it's very helpful for us, because if you're gonna just request a second review later, we might as well just wait. So, yeah. Keith?
The historical record updates, right, 2 weeks before.
Yes.
Are you doing the SSIDs as well, that phrase?
Yes, that's a good call out. So this school year, we did start putting a deadline, so to speak, on SSID merges. The idea behind that was similar to historical updates. It just takes a lot of teams and manual work to get those done. And so we do ask that you try to get all SSID merges and historical updates in 2 weeks prior to any UTREX finalized deadline. It doesn't mean that they won't get done if you put it in after. It just is guaranteed if you do it at that 2 weeks.
And there's no cutoff for the S1X, right?
There is no cutoff. The S1X updates can be submitted up until the day that you finalize. Just make sure that if you do an S1X record update, that you do a new submission so that that gets in UTREX and then finalize it. And then S1Xs will become even more crucial in October, because you will have till October to for graduation data. But it is nice if you can get those done in July, because then you have less to do before October. And then next month's LEA data meeting is an important one, because that is when we will go over all of the year-end data points that we will be reviewing. We go over those pretty in depth, exactly what you should be checking in your data for that July submission, as well as things that we will mark on the courtesy review, and also who you should be involving in your LEA. So for example, it's not just you as the data submitter, it might involve some of your SPED teams or teachers, and it's nice to catch them before they go out of the building for the summer. So that meeting will be on Thursday, May 21st, and that will be our normal on Zoom 1:30 in the afternoon. Okay. Any questions on any of the year-end UTREX announcements? You can always call or email me if you have anything, but that's just looking forward, what to plan for year-end. Okay, my next two topics are pretty specific issues that we've just seen in Utrecht this last school year. So the first one was actually brought up to us by a district that emailed in a question. And as we thought more about it, we wanted to bring it to this meeting to ask other districts and charters how they are handling, or if you see this issue. The question was related to what to do if a student does not have a legal name on the birth certificate. So it could be a last name or a first name. The impact of that is that those are required fields in Utrecht, meaning it will trigger a level 1 validation error if you leave it blank. And that will block the student's record from getting in, from assessment rostering. And so rather than leave it blank, the question is, well, do we just make up a name? Do we put in like quotation marks? Like, what do we put in? The example that the LEA gave was a Native American student who just did not have a given last name on the birth certificate. So opening it up, are there any LEAs that have seen this? Is this not something that has ever come up? If you have seen it, what are you doing currently?
I've never seen that.
Never, okay.
I've never seen it either.
Okay.
But I wonder if you can treat it just like how we do with Hispanic students, where you're gonna take both the mother and father's last names and hyphenate them or something.
Well, but if they have no last name,
Even the parents on the birth certificate don't have a last name either, I guess.
Doesn't the DOT system have the same requirement, but it is for driver's license?
so we, some of our team members, we looked at.
No, but the parents probably have a guardian that already dealt with that system, so the adult or the guardian probably already have that addressed, because it's already existing in other systems. Are we creating the deal?
Yeah, that's something we could look at, is how another agency is inputting that for that student. Yeah.
So I'm guessing this came from a specific example.
Yeah.
So says no legal last name on the birth certificate,
Mhm.
but do they have, like, if you said what's your last name, they say, oh, it's this, it's just not the birth certificate, and then in that case, it's just do what they told you. But you're kind of that, what you're just saying, your parents probably process bridge before. And if
Yeah.
an issue that they don't have a last name, or that they have a last name that's not on the birth certificate.
From what I understood, they didn't have a last name, or it was one that was very untraditional, like in the Native American world, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it can be like running elk or something like that, where it's not like a name per se.
So then you put that.
And that's one option. Yeah, we're just trying to get a sense of what people are doing, what should we do. One thought was, we looked at what other states were doing. We could just put the word null in the last name field, because that satisfies the Utrecht requirement that it's not blank. The only problem is if there ever was a family who actually had the last name of null, which we have seen exists. Anyway, so we just wanted to open that up for discussion, if or if it's so rare that we don't need to think about this, and we can just address this one question from this one LEA. Yes.
Going back to the comment was made though with the Hispanic last names, you're not supposed to hyphen those two last names. You're supposed to keep a space between them, right? Like there's-
Whatever's on the birth.
Right, that's,
Some
yeah.
have hyphen.
Somehow I
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's where we'll see a lot of merge issues if one LEA puts the hyphen,
Yeah.
another LEA doesn't, things like that. But
The issue with Hispanic names on birth certificates, it doesn't specify which name this person or last name, it lists their name.
Well, a lot of it's
Right.
pretty narrow.
In the state of Utah is really good about putting the last name on there, but if you get a birth certificate from Mexico, or you get a birth
Yeah.
certificate from somewhere else, sometimes it's not as clear, which is why we use the hyphen on we use a
Yeah.
standard in our district anyway. We take the standard of both the mother and the father's last name with a hyphen in the middle when it's not specified on the birth certificate.
That's problematic
Yeah.
happening in the name, because if they go back to the original country, they will not recognize those documents.
Yeah, so we can, yeah, look into, does the student have a last name, like Steven suggested, and they're just, it's not on the birth certificate, or do the parents have a last name that can be used?
And the state doesn't require them to have a last name? Do you think that's illegal?
The state meaning USBE or just the,
In state of Utah.
well, it was able to go blank on the birth certificate.
Part of it though, I mean, if this is a Native American, if they're part of the tribe, like they on reservation,
Right.
who, like state federal rules are sometimes different for those people that they.
Yeah, oh, yes, Cliff.
So my thoughts, and this is just open, would be either just using the first name for both fields, because systems have that role, to be able to process through, or like that last suggestion of put the tribe in. Even date of birth, first name, tribe name, probably everything.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll try to compile some of these ideas,
Will you put that in the spec?
yeah, if we can eventually get to a place where we have like more of a policy on it or a guideline on it, yeah, we would, probably put that in the spec, yes.
Another option, and maybe this is possible, what if you change Utrex to allow just the single name, and maybe you had another field that's applied that the student have one name, you know, and if that's checked, then it allows one to be filled, if it's unchecked, it requires both.
Or just make it a warning instead of an error, and then that way you check the warning, oh yeah, that's legit, that kid only has one.
Has anybody in this room ever seen this? I'm wondering if this is like a one-off that we're.
Yeah.
There's someone in the
Was
chat.
that- Oh, go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, do you wanna, I don't know
I-
who,
This is Katrina. I was just gonna
Oh.
say, we actually get multiple tickets every year regarding this exact situation where the birth certificate only has the first name on it. And when we've talked to our users at the user group meeting for like Aspire, a lot of them are like what Cliff was saying, they're using their first name in both spots, or they choose to use, like you said, the parents, if the parents have last names, like the parents' last name, they'll put in it. So it's kind of all over the board from what we've seen from our end, from, the application help desk side at USBE. But I just wanted to kind of let you know that.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And we did look in our database for past school years, like finalized data, and there are quite a few examples of last name or first name fields that were, well, I think, Riley, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but it was mostly last names that were just left blank.
How do they get?
no, they weren't
Sorry.
left blank. They were
Sorry.
null.
Thank you. Yes, I said that incorrectly.
The same name in both of those makes most sense to me. I mean, that would catch your eye, but then you'd have a reason why. I mean, that makes more sense to me than putting null in the last name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, does that make sense, Aaron, to you, to use the first name in both?
Let me just say, I don't think we have an answer from this group. We're trying to see what should be the consensus or the guiding principles behind this. I don't think you guys have the answer either. So we'll probably go back and do a little bit more discussion and actually talk with those LEAs who run into this situation. I've also put out a filler with the Native American specialists and saying, oh, because really, if we can get to just some guiding principles when you run into this weird situation. Personally, I prefer that we don't break the system to bring in this really odd issue here. So when I say break, I'm not saying, we don't need a super re-engineer it, but we do need to come up with a standard. And Utah might just be doing it very differently from every other state too. Because when I have this question, I actually brought this up on a national discussion, everyone's like, yeah, everyone's a little bit off too. Most don't have it, but then you just have these odd cases. So there's my, yes, it makes sense. The answer is, I don't think we have the answer yet.
Okay, well, we'll keep note of all these suggestions, ideas. This is helpful, and then we'll report back what the final consensus is.
There's a comment.
Yes.
Just, what about NMI used elsewhere for no middle initial? How about NLN for no last name? Or even no last name? Like the.
Okay. Okay, yeah, we'll have to make a list of all these suggestions. Okay. Anything else on that before we move on? Okay, thank you. That's really helpful to get LEA feedback. Yes, sorry, one more comment.
Just had a set of,
Okay,
birth certificate ID. That's extremely identifiable. We don't have a name.
Some out of state ones do not have.
So I feel like so.
So that would work in Utah, but it would not work if we using an out of state version.
can you put numbers though in the name?
Oh, it's not restricted out, but. I might be wrong.
We're still digging into it. It's a weird one.
Okay,
I think if I wasn't gonna put null, I'd just put in not reported.
like spell it out.
Yeah, because there's no, there's no value, not reported, something like that.
It's not legend if there's many people with that last name.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Okay, we will report back on that. Thank you guys for the discussion. Is there anything else? Okay. The next topic I have, so this has come up recently, but there's a reason why it's come up, so I'll get to that. So just to preface the discussion, in UTREX, there is a validation, it's on the student record that a kindergarten student cannot have membership greater than 0 if their birth date is less than 5 as of September 1st of that school year, or the student is not preschool, special ed, or a military child. So that is the rule. However, and then in plain language, in the specs, it says, although these students should not be in school, records are accepted for those who are enrolled, but there can be no membership. So you can submit a 4-year-old kindergarten record if they don't meet those conditions. You just can't have membership greater than 0. The reason that this has come up recently is that prior to January of this year, for whatever reason, the validation was not actually triggering correctly, so no one was getting the fatal error. So you could have been submitting students that were 4 with membership, and it would have gotten through. It was fixed, so now LEAs are getting the fatal. This was as of a few weeks ago. There was 8 total errors in the entire state across 6 LEAs, so it's not very many. Yes, it's a level 1. This number could also be low because now that people are emailing in about it, we're telling them if the student needs to get in for rostering, you can put 0 membership, clear the error for right now. I also want to bring up that there is a rule in code that allows for exceptions if the student was previously enrolled in kindergarten in the same school year out of state, and it was allowable to be enrolled as a 4-year-old in that other place. So that's kind of the background on this. What we want to ask, how have LEAs been handling this prior to January? Is it possible that it was overlooked because the error was just not triggering, so you didn't know it was happening? Or do LEAs just enroll few kindergarten students that are age 4? Or opposite of that, do you see this a lot? And do you know the reasons why you're enrolling them? So we just kind of wanted to get more information. Has this been happening a lot? Do you know why it's happening? How are you handling it? So yeah, anyone have, yes,
So we had a situation where a student moved from Washington State
okay,
and enrolled for part of the year. And we've done this much, we get a few of these maybe every year, not full. Sometimes we just enroll them in our SIS and don't report it to the state. Zero membership's not a great way to do it, because you lost them.
okay. Do you know if the student, like from Washington, for example, it was allowed there and you're just deciding to take the hit and you're just,
That's exactly what it was. And had it only been like they were only enrolled in September or something like that,
Mhm.
but they came in January. And
Yeah.
so they had been enrolled, been taught kindergarten for 3 months. They don't have a holiday.
Okay, so your LEA was just not getting funding for the student, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what happened to us a couple of years ago, but then I emailed you about that other situation the other day, because this student that we're getting now is a level 2 student, and that wasn't a hit we wanted to take. You
yeah,
know, it's one thing to lose out on the WPU, but if we have to hire a one-on-one aid and everything for the student,
yeah,
that's a bigger deal.
okay. Anybody else? Is there anyone online that's commented? Oh, yeah,
A couple of years ago, we had some case, that came in where the court was ordered to put the kid into kindergarten. It was a foster care situation, and the kid was supposed to go back to, I believe it was in Tooele. Go back to Nevada. You had a 4-year-old. And it was court ordered,
okay,
so that also happens.
okay.
Has this always been an error? Cause I could have sworn like 2 years ago, I had like a warning on a kid, he's from Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd enrolled there and he'd been there for, kindergarten for like a certain portion, then he enrolled in the last 2 years. And then we just kept it, I had warnings, but I don't remember an error.
Well, the error wasn't working, so you wouldn't have seen this error prior to this January. But we didn't know that it wasn't working, so.
I've got this error before the years, so it did work and then it broke.
Yeah, something,
But I don't, but yeah, I want to say I've seen a warning around this, but it wasn't that, almost like a. I don't know exactly what it was.
It's always been a fatal in the 7 years I've been doing it, but.
yeah,
Murray online said they had one student from Canada, they enrolled the student as a non-attender, so.
okay. So it sounds like most people are handling it by just not taking the funding. Okay, so,
Fair to ask them to do,
correct, yes,
especially with all day kindergarten and the funding increasing for kindergarten.
yeah. Which is why we're bringing this up now, because we're starting to get more questions about it. And as of right now, the only fix, which I'll talk about in a second, is a historical update, which is a lot of work. So before I get to that point on how to fix it, if you have that issue, if you are getting the fatal error currently, you do need to review it thoroughly. It's not every student that gets that fatal error automatically qualifies for an exception, meaning not all 4-year-old, the majority, the validation is in place because the majority of kindergarten students should have a birth date that's 5 as of September 1st. That's the majority. If you have exceptions to that, you need to review those closely. For example, should they have a special ed record, or should they have the military flag marked, or if it's one of these other things where they moved from somewhere else, we need you to do that research and figure out, should this student get funding or not? We expect that there's going to be, a lot that, no, they shouldn't get funding, just based on it was the parents' choice to put them in, or in their previous enrollment, it wasn't allowed and they just got enrolled early, or whatever the case is. So that's easy. You submit 0 membership or non-attender. When there is an exception though, where you need to claim membership, these are the reasons that would qualify for that. So I'm not going to read through all of them. The one I've seen the most is when a student moves from a different state where, again, the key is that it was allowable in that other state. So it can't just be that they moved from Virginia, but in Virginia, it also wasn't allowed. So it had to have been allowable in that other state. It also had to have been in the same school year for that to be an exception. And then this is the other code, which would qualify for an exception. And I will send these out for you to read as well. So here is the fix, which I mentioned. If you do find yourself as one of those LEAs that has the fatal currently, and you should be claiming membership on the student, if you've reviewed them thoroughly and you find an exception from one of those codes that I just shared, the only way to claim membership and get the record in UTREX, meaning not have the fatal error, is to request a fatal error exception. And the only way that we know how to do that right now is through a historical update. This is something that we haven't faced before. We've done level 2 exceptions, but never level 1. But again, before you put in that request, we do ask that you are sure. We need you to reach out, check that this is correct. Because we don't want to do this and then an audit happens, and you shouldn't have been getting funding on that student. Yes.
So the one that I just did, you had me just go grab Virginia's code and put it in the historical update.
Yeah.
I just put a link to the code and I assume that maybe.
Yeah, and we will check the student's record when you give us the SSID, make sure that they were enrolled. Everything lines up with what the LEA is saying, and if it checks out, then yeah, the only way right now that we know to fix that is through that process. We do currently have 3 in with Cliff's team. And because the UTREX team hasn't done this before, this is new, it's kind of taken a long time to get those through. It hasn't been as quick as other historical updates, which I wouldn't call quick. And so my main thing for you to take away is that if you have any of these errors right now, please review them now. If you need to get in a historical update, it needs to be now. If you wait till 2 weeks before, I just can't promise that that's going to get done. I know that Cliff's team, because we've had the 3, they are learning how to do it, but it still it's really hard to make a level 1 exception on 1 student. So please put those in immediately. Any questions on that? Okay, if not, then that's all I have, and I will turn the time over to Megan, who I believe is online.
Yes, we are here. Hopefully you can hear us. Me and Garrett are on here. We just wanted to give you guys a few quick attendance updates. We don't have a lot of time, but we wanted to share that there were some legislation that did pass this legislative session. If you haven't seen Senate Bill 58, that does impact attendance data. I'm sure Aaron will be giving you, if he hasn't already given you, a lot of information about that. But we just wanted to let you guys know about that, and that does impact attendance data and data quality. So we will be sharing more about that in our upcoming webinars if you want to come and attend those. But I'm also sure that the data team will also be updating you about that.
The other thing we were going to let you guys know is that we do have year-long learning cohorts. Right now, we're up to about 44 members that are continuing and new. And out of those, we're going to be educating them about the legislative updates for the data quality. So just kind of expect them to be reaching out to the data teams at each of your LEAs so that they can get assistance with that. We'll try to walk them through it, help them see what the differences are and what the requirements are, but there might be some extra people reaching out just because they're directly working with us on attendance, so they're more aware. And we
Yeah.
will talk about that in our webinars. We have a couple coming up in May and then in July as well.
Yeah, and then just they also might just reach out just in general because we do help them talk about data just in general about how do you utilize data to increase your attendance. So if you're not aware, we could also let you know if you're not sure if your LEA or your school is participating in our cohort, you're welcome to reach out to us. Our contact information will be at the end of this. We also send out information in a monthly newsletter. I'm not sure, is it best to just drop that in the chat, Callista, so that people can, if they want to join, to get attendance updates, if you want to learn more about attendance or you're curious about what we're sending out throughout the state about attendance and um that I'll
Yeah,
drop it in the I'll just drop that in the chat.
and then we can also, we'll send out a follow-up email with all of the slides, so we can also include it in that.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So if you have other questions or you want to learn more about what we're sending out, you're welcome to sign up for that newsletter that goes out every month. Not specifically on data or attendance data, but just to kind of keep you updated with what's going on around the state with attendance. So those are
And
just a few of the updates. Anything else you want to add, Garrett?
yeah, our upcoming May webinar, we do have representatives from Panorama that are going to be presenting. They're the early warning system provider that got the RFP for the state. And so we know that they're trying to do a push for a lot of charter schools. But initially, I think they're reaching out to larger districts. So if you want some more information about the early warning system and how you can get access to that, if you're interested in Panorama or anything, feel free to hop on our May 5th webinar at 10:30. And we'll put that information with Callista's team so they can send that out as well.
Okay, that's all we have. Are there any questions about attendance or anything that we can answer right now or?
Nothing in the chat. So I'm gonna give you guys some information about this right now, just so you're aware. So I don't affect anything this year. More information is coming, but what we will be looking at is next year, you will be calculating chronic absenteeism. And I actually think most of you are doing it and can do it right now anyway. So that's a change. And so that'll be a submission change with it. Probably. Right now, state calculates chronic absenteeism because we use state level data to make sure we know where everything's at. We're on that. That is going to flip next year. There's some reporting requirements and some things that you need to do on effectiveness of what chronic absenteeism and truancy and how that's going to trigger within your own SIS. That information is coming. The second thing that we're talking about is redefining or setting up those definitions of when do you submit a day absent, when you submit truant, when you submit these different elements. We're going through and figuring those out. And I will be reaching out to kind of a stakeholder group or make sure I'm into every SIS to make sure that you can already do this, or we can make sure that those definitions are in alignment. So Steve.
Basically, when you submit, you're not talking like timelines, you're talking about like what the definition of this is, what
Yes.
counts.
Yes, what is the, yeah, what does this look like when we start submitting? What are
When you
these?
could use this code versus this.
Correct. And how do you apply those codes or those understandings within, when you do your calculation of chronic absenteeism, so we can make sure that as a state, we're all unified. So when, for example, when Alpine says, Alpine's going away, but right now, when Alpine says, this is what chronic absenteeism, it's the same definition, the same meaning as what Davis says, what Jordan says, what, you know, so on and so forth. So we're trying to get that definition figured out as well. Okay, we'll go behind you first, Paul.
We're not dead yet.
I know you're not.
So when you mentioned that we'll be doing our own calculations, are you inferring that the SIS will do a calculation instead of 1 or 0 based on if they're chronic or not? Is that
We're not there yet on what you'll be sending to us. How about that for an answer? I don't know yet. We're still working out those details. What I do know is the law, it goes in effect for an upcoming school year. We looked at it and says, okay, so USB has been doing this in the past. SISs now have to do this. What does that mean all the way through? We haven't gotten through all the way through yet. We're still working on definitions. So we'll come back up to see.
You kind of just answered my question, just to make sure. So there's nothing for this year, albeit Utrex or via cultural survey or anything, just that next year, Utrex will be changing. Details are,
Yeah, or we're good, or there's also a hypothetical, Utrex might not change at all because we're not ready to change on our side, but you'll just be reporting it the way you have. We haven't figured this all out because there's a lot of work that has to be done between now and next year when Utrex gets assumed. So just letting you know is we're still working on details on what you submit to us, but you as an LEA will need to have what is chronic absenteeism mean on the individual students. And we'll make sure those definitions are unified and applied correctly.
Hypothetically, will you have validation on that? If we send, oh, this kid is chronically absent, and oh, we did our calculation, we don't, and that's chronically absent. Will you have a validation on that data point or no?
I don't know yet. That's a great question. I don't know yet. We're working on it. So attendance has got a lot of attention. Through the legislation, through the state board, through the policy, the changes, this, you guys are aware of this, attendance is not what it used to be, we'll say that. It's really changed. So this is coming back and trying to say, okay, what do all these codes mean? And let's make sure that we have unified definitions within the vendors. And then we'll start working on the state, what that means as we report it back to.
As you work on those definitions, will you please add to your list, what does it mean by here? For a secondary school that has multiple periods.
Yeah, we are. We're trying to look at every single angle. Yeah, and as we look at all the angles, then we're also reaching out saying, what are we missing? What aren't we thinking through? Yeah, yes, it's complicated. It's fine. Maybe.
Here, we're gonna help you though. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. There's full-time staff, but that's all they look at, so. This is good.
Exactly. This is our job, so we will help you if you need help. But any other questions for us before we have to hop off?
There are no questions in the room.
Okay, thanks you guys. See ya.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. And I will add also, for those that attended the basic Utrex training, in the other session, we did talk about chronic absenteeism and attendance and kind of the technical calculations that we do currently for those, and we will send out our business rules. Again, that's currently, so it could change, but we do plan to send that out as part of that presentation. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, next up then. We have Mark from the USIMS team.
Thank you.
I'll try this. Hopefully that works. I realize that this is after lunch. And so unless you have a lot of questions, I'll go through this quickly, and there's other items that are going to get covered here. And so in the interest of time, I'll do that. Just to give you a quick update, we've been focused, USIMS on the student data side has been focused on the student backpack. Some of you are painfully aware that that's what we've been doing. A quick shout out to Stacy, Logan, in Cache and Iron counties, to Davis, who's been working in the background on student backpack integration, and of course, just from an input standpoint, Nebo, Eric, and Jordan school districts have been very helpful with that. So I'll get to that in just a minute, but because of funding and timelines and our need to fulfill 53E-3-518, some of the requirements there, we've shifted our focus now to subsuming. That's the term we're using, subsuming. I like to say feature parity with UTREX. So that's where our focus is going to be from now until July 1st. There will be some exceptions. We're still going to, and I'll talk about student backpack in a minute. Obviously, we're still moving forward with the student backpack. This is more of just a development shift in focus for us. So why am I telling you this? One, just as an FYI that this is what we're doing. And two, just as Stacy said, any type of input that you have in our student focused working group meetings, or times where we may reach out and just ask for your input, we want to ensure that we're learning from what we've done with UTREX, what's good, and those things that maybe we want to change. It's a new platform. The intention is to say, how do we make this better? We talked, I referenced a little bit before in my comments that decoupling the data and moving to more of a modern microservice architecture gives us a lot of flexibility on the state side to be able to do a lot of things. I'm working closely, Cliff and I are working closely together, and our two different teams are now getting closer to being just one team to tackle those efforts. It's a huge undertaking. Obviously, what I wanted to emphasize that as you hear about this, it doesn't mean that UTREX is getting shut off July 1st. This is a target date for us to get the foundation in place so that post July 1st, we can add other capabilities to it. But just understand that we're not gonna, this isn't a shut off date. And I emphasize that because in some groups I've mentioned, hey, we're focusing on this and our target is this date. And what people took away from that is, oh no, UTREX is going away and we don't have any requirements, and how are we going to do this? And how are we supposed to submit data? Data will be submitted the same way that you're doing it today. Now, some of you may be groaning at that because the current, okay, yep, the current process is for submitting data has its pluses and minuses. I'll just say that. And we do still want to move to an API-based submission process, but we realized that it was better for us with the time constraints that we have to focus on replacing the functionality in UTREX rather than come back to you and not have enough time to work out the specifics on moving away from the SIF submission process to more of an API or EdFi API type structure. So I'm just letting you know that that's coming in the future, but it's not something that we're going to be trying to do tomorrow. And some of you I've talked to have expressed that was kind of the focus or the intention in our next fiscal year, but those priorities have shifted a little bit. Any questions on that before I ramble on? Yes.
You mentioned there were pluses to the current way we upload it. Oh, what are those?
Yeah. It functions. I don't know. I was being generous, but yeah, no, good one. And we understand that too. Like I've heard from enough of you that we've got, and I know Cliff, that's his life, that a lot of this is painful for you. So we're trying to expedite moving to that. And we're going to ask for your input before we officially start doing the development work to get out ahead of it. So we'll share at different times, like forums like this, what we're thinking to try and move us forward a little bit. Any other questions on that? So that's what we're doing for the student data side of this. USIMS really is more of an ecosystem. So the student backpack is really just a small portion of functionality that we've created within USIMS. Just so that, you know, when in our fictitious student Taylor moves from one LEA to the next, that data goes with them. And so this is just a recap to show you what data sets are currently available to our SIS vendors and thus to you. Each of the SIS vendors are at different stages of implementation. Power School is getting ready to come online here very shortly. Thanks to, again, to Stacy and Logan's efforts. That'll be going live. Aspire also is in the process of implementing. Assessments are live now, but student growth percentile and school performance scores, as well as summative attendance, will be available. So we're really trying to roll this out into by data sets so we can work through any issues. And we've done that for the most part, as Stacy mentioned before, which each of you will be able to benefit from as we integrate with your systems as well. The two things that we didn't get completed that we had scope to do was course section attendance and teachers for courses that students have taken. So those are the two pieces that are on hold for right now. We still will be supporting the student backpack. So when you have bugs or issues, data doesn't seem to match, you know, feel free, to reach out to us, and we'll continue to support that. But our focus is going to be on the internal piece of that is Utrex, if you will. I think I covered most of that. Any questions for me? I just wanted to give you kind of a state of where things are with USIMS and answer any questions that you have. Okay. I'll turn it over to Malia. That long walk from back there.
Yeah. Okay, how many people were in the meeting last month? Okay, a lot of this stuff I covered in great detail last month. So I'm just gonna cover it quickly this month. So for those of you that were here last month, hopefully I don't bore you.
Talking about the Utrex meeting last month?
Yeah, the Utrex meeting, yeah, and specifically my special ed updates like last month. So people who weren't here last month, if you want to know more about what I covered now, refer to last month's PowerPoint. Okay, so the first topic is we've made some changes to the Scrum CCW detail Utrex report. And the summary of those changes is we added some new fields to the report that help determine the reason for a student not being included in December totals. There are a few details that you previously couldn't determine from this report, and now you can determine those since with these being included. And then we also added the exit code, the school exit code to this report. So now the report has school exit code, Scrum exit code, and high school completion status code. And your special ed director, for them to be able to anticipate which students are potentially going to be dropouts or summer dropouts if they don't return to school after the summer, a lot of times that comes from the school exit code, not from the high school completion status code or the Scrum exit code. And so by adding that in here, now they have autonomy in being able to review Scrum data and figure that out without having to come to you for access to additional information. And Scrum CCW detail report, it is listed under December. But I'm constantly, whenever I'm training special ed directors about Utrex data, I encourage them to use the Scrum CCW detail report year round. The only aspect of that report that's really specific to December is that include in totals column.
Otherwise, the data updates daily with each new UTREC submission, and because we've added those exit code fields to this report, the report actually is really useful for them to use at year end and to archive a copy of at year end. So if your special ed director isn't already using the report to review the at year end, just give them a plug to use that. And then this is where you find what the codes are in Scrum CCW. The exit codes are in the UTREC specifications. And then we also have a federal graduation and dropout codes reference, which is a handy tool for kind of matrix to see which codes end up being potentially dropouts or graduates. Okay, and then the next update is we have the Scrum alternate assessment teacher ID field, which have already been mentioned by multiple people today. The main, these first couple slides just give some information about those fields, the validations on those fields. But the main thing to update you on is that UTRECs can now receive this data. So if you're already able to send it and you've been waiting to send it to find out first if we can receive it, we can receive it now. And you can look up the data in the examine file to verify that it's coming across into UTRECs correctly. Or if there's members of your team who are trying to look up data in Data Gateway and they don't have access to the examine file, they can also try looking it up in using the student lookup functionality, that student search functionality. It's listed under Scrum details. And then future work that we have remaining with these fields is to add them to the OneRoster API so that this data gets sent into DLM, and then the rostering in DLM happens more automatically. That work is not going to be done during the 2026 school year. We hope to get it in place 2027, hopefully fairly early in the school year. Okay, the next thing is our annual performance determination, which is kind of accountability for your special ed department. So the determinations came out in the beginning of April, and depending on the determination that your LEA got, your special ed director, special ed team may have to come to a data and action planning session this summer. We rolled these out for the first time last year, so this year is year 2. So some of you maybe came last year and are familiar with these. Basically, with the annual performance determination, we score LEAs on a variety of measures. Basically, is your LEA compliant with meeting the requirements of IDEA? And so the LEA gets an overall determination of either meets requirements, needs assistance, needs intervention, or needs substantial intervention. And then in addition to the overall determination, we also have determinations for the individual measures. And so we sent out the report in early April, which lists what the determinations are, the overall, and then the determinations by individual measures. And then we actually sent a preliminary report much earlier than that, and we had a review period where LEAs could appeal their determinations on individual measures. And so the last month when I presented, I told you we would have 31 LEAs that are required to come to one of these data and action planning sessions. It's now down to 26 because 5 LEAs, they appealed some of the measures, appeals were granted, and their overall determination ended up being moved into a different bracket, and now those LEAs are no longer required to attend a session. However, we also this year are encouraging LEAs to attend a session if their measures on proficiency or growth are in the needs assessment or needs substantial intervention brackets, because that's what we're focusing on in these data sessions. And the outcomes for students with disabilities on assessments really aren't improving over time. And we are really trying to move that needle. We want to see improvement on that. And so these data and action planning sessions, we're trying to troubleshoot what can we do to get the assessment outcomes to improve. And so that's an additional 87 LEAs that are encouraged to attend one of these sessions. And so in some, that's 113 LEAs. So that's 2/3 of our LEAs. So there's a really good chance that the majority of you in the room, your LEA is either required or encouraged to attend. So if you aren't already aware of what your LEA status is, please go back and talk to your special ed director and find out. Because if they are planning on attending, we'd like to see you there also. So you can help them review data. There is also going to be some additional data that USBE doesn't have access to, that your special ed director or your team is going to benefit from being able to bring that data and review it during the sessions. And so we need your support in that, in helping your special ed director gather that data together to bring to the meeting and be able to consume that data. So this is the list of the session dates and locations. And we want LEAs who are coming to come together as a team all on the same date. We don't want different individuals coming on different dates. We want you to work together as a team. And then this is who we encourage should attend, a team of people to focus on data and outcomes. Let's see, actually gets a little more detailed here of who should attend. We'd love to see teams from a variety of roles across the LEA, special ed, data, curriculum, assessment director, instructional coaches, behavior support representatives, building administrators, including especially for schools that are designated for school improvement. And then we'd love to even see teacher representatives from both special education and general education. And so we provide a data set with 3 years of data of assessment outcomes at the student level, and then aggregated median growth percentiles, proficiency, and then also participation and non-participation data. And then we are encouraging LEAs to gather additional data on assessments, particularly progress monitoring data. We don't have 2026 data at the state yet that's been fully processed and loaded into our system. So you would hopefully be able to help your special ed director gather the 2026 school year assessment data to supplement the 3 years that we're providing, which is 23, 24, 25 school year data. IEPs are useful to have, behavior data, curriculum and standards information, course definitions and assignments, maybe even staffing and budgeting information, professional learning information, and more. And so, yeah, so that's in addition to considering coming to a session with your special ed team, this is also how you can what this means for you is you can help prepare this data. And I know Eric was there, came as part of a big team last year, and it seemed like they loved having you there to support them and dig into the data. Hopefully we'll see you there again. And if anyone else here hasn't been to one and wants some to hear firsthand from someone who's been, hopefully Eric would be happy to share.
Yes. Someone online asked if you could put the dates with the QR code back up.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And of course, the registration information has gone out to your special ed director. It's also, the letter also went out to each LEA's either superintendent or for charters, your charter director. And we've already had, I don't know, about half the LEAs, more than half the LEAs that are required to attend have signed up already. And then maybe like 10-15% of the LEAs that are encouraged to attend have signed up. Yes.
What if they have not received those?
Oh, Okay, I'll give you my card so we can follow up. Okay. Okay, are we good here, closing?
Yeah, she said that.
Okay. Okay, and then the last thing I just wanted to go over is just I've had a lot of questions recently about participation or more particularly non-participation data that's included in this APD determinations. So the data, the participation data that's used in this is based on EdFacts data, which is used for the Office of Special Education Programs Indicator 3A, which is participation of students with disabilities on assessments. And so I just wanted to give you some tips on some things about the data for participation that for the LEAs that are concerned about. And particularly it's the students with unknown as the reason for non-participation that I get a lot of questions on. And these are some things to be aware of that can help combat the number of students that end up with an unknown reason for non-participation. The first one is part-time codes. So the EdFacts specifications require that that any student who's enrolled during the assessment window is expected to test. And we mostly follow that rule, but we deviate from it with part-time students. If a student is only enrolled part-time, if they're coming to you for only math and otherwise they're a homeschooled student, we're not going to say they belong in the denominator for participation for science and language arts. We're only going to put them in the denominator for math. But we need information from you in order to be able to do that correctly. We need the part-time code to be submitted as part of the student, the S1 record, the student record. So if we have the part-time code, then we look at the course codes and we determine which courses the student would end up being rostered for, and we only put them in the denominator for that subject area. Okay, and then the next thing, so for the most part, if a student is showing up as unknown in this data set, either they just never even got rostered for a test to begin with, so you never had an opportunity to even enter a participation code that explains the reason they didn't test. And that often comes down to the student didn't have a course code that would get them rostered. So you'll want to check if you have a student a special ed student who isn't showing up in RISE or Utah Aspire Plus, and you expect them to, well, RISE, it's based on course codes. So check the course codes, make sure they have a course code that triggers getting sent to RISE. Utah Aspire Plus, they're supposed to get in there based on the grade level. Or they get sent to DLM if they have the 1% flag marked. So those are things to check, make sure the grade level is correct, make sure the 1% flag is marked and they should be getting into DLM, or make sure if they're supposed to be getting into RISE, make sure that they have the appropriate course codes. And then for students who do get in, but then they exit your school early, they exit pretty early in the test window. So not all of the students who there's some kind of quirk. I saw something from Maureen the other day that explained one of the reasons for the quirk, where a student who exits won't show up in your discrepancy report. Is that what it's called? Yeah, that for you to know that you need to give them a participation code explaining why they didn't take a test. And I think it has to do with if they exit your school and then go to another school and then end up in RISE from that other school. And so sometimes the students don't get pulled into the denominator for that other school. They still get pulled into the denominator for your school. And your school doesn't have a participation code because the student wasn't in there when you pulled the discrepancy report to enter participation codes. So the key for that is to, as soon as a student's going to be exiting your school, give them a participation code. Put in a code that explains what's one of the ones they would use if they are exiting before the end of the test?
There is one for transfer before,
Transfer before test window, that's right, yeah, so Maureen will look up the code. There is a code there's an exact code for that. So we just need to be a little more proactive on entering those participation codes when a student is gonna exit your school and go, regardless of whether they're gonna go to another school. Just enter that code early rather than wait to do it when the discrepancy report gets pulled, because the student might not show up in the discrepancy report. Okay, and then this 112 code. Okay. And this explains just more of what I just said. So yeah, even if you still have questions about the non-participation data, feel free to reach out to me. I think my email address was on the first slide of my special ed update section. Any questions, anything online, Calista?
I haven't seen, no.
Okay. Anyone here have questions for me? Okay, we'll hand it over to Kristen. Go.
All right, I am going to be pretty quick. So Cactus/USIM renewals have been sent out to your professionally licensed educators every month. They have until June 29th to renew through USIMs. If anyone needs a list of their expiring educators, they can email me. There was a legislation change this year. If your audiologists and SLPs do not renew by May 6th, they will have to renew through Doppel. Here's the advantage. If they do it now, they get 5 years. If they do it through Doppel, they have to start renewing every 2 years. And everyone after that will be renewing through Doppel. So if you have any questions, contact licensing. There's their email. We had a core code change that allows students in students in middle school to get high school credit. That they cannot use these high school credit courses to replace any middle school educational requirements. So that's a big, they can't go take some high-level math class and have it count for 7th and 8th grade math and take it afterwards. There is an exception to this. Health 2 cannot be offered to anyone below 9th grade. If you do offer it, you're going to get a note and be asked why you are doing this. It is not appropriate for those kids. Students can take courses from accredited schools that count for high school credit. They are supposed to let their counselors know, and it can't be used to fulfill middle school requirements. And there's Health 2. Don't do it. Basically, it's just like SOEP now, except you can do it in your own LEA. What does it mean for scheduling? So we are getting rid of all courses that cross the 8-9 grade boundary. We're going to have a grade 8 course, grade 7 and 8 course called middle school, and a grade 9-12 called high school. So this is the biggest change is going to be in the foreign languages and in the arts courses. So if you have a 7-9, if you create the French 1 middle school, you can't have any 9th graders in it and have it count for high school credit. Yes.
When does this take effect?
It took effect last year, but we're just getting around to it.
Oh.
So
by next year, we need to have created a whole bunch of new courses.
Yes. Yeah, those kiddos. It's just, we're doing the world languages this year, and next year we'll do the arts courses. So it is up to the LEA to add any high school credit earned in the 7th and 8th grade, just like SOEP, to the 9th grade transcript. So,
Sorry, are we gonna get errors then if we have kids in courses that we missed or something, you know what I mean?
I will probably run some checks next January and contact you. We don't have any, things built in. The biggest, I mean, you can have eighth graders in the ninth grade class. And I know at one LEA is like, we're just gonna make the high school class, so we don't have any problems. It is up to the middle school student to say, hey, Mr. Counselor, I wanna take this for high school credit. I don't need it for middle school credit. So it's gonna be minimal anyway. There's a few differences. The high school courses have to have a secondary licensed educator, while the 7-8 courses can have an elementary or a secondary ed teacher with the right endorsement. Just like with SOEP, there's some universities, scholarships, NCAA that do not take any credit earned in grades 7 and 8, something just to remember. CTE, yes.
Real quick, that part about courses to expand over them.
Uh-huh.
So, cause I remember talking about, Julie and I asked this question, so do we have to divide them? Now you're saying, yes, we do.
No, you don't have to. So like, let's say you have an 8 class with all 9th graders and you got one 8th grader in it, it's fine. But you cannot take, if you have a French 1 middle school, a 9th grader cannot be in that course and get high school credit. It is considered a middle school course, even though it's the same course, it's middle school. So like right now in Cactus, there's French 1 middle school, there's French 1 high school. So you can have middle school students enrolled in the French 1 high school. They have to tell you beforehand they want to take it for high school credit. If not, it'll just be considered middle school credit. This wasn't my idea, by the way. CTE generic, write that down, tattoo it on your hand. That is the generic ID for any educator you have in your CTE courses who you're not putting into Cactus. Yes.
So I was told, just want to make certain this is subsuming the law enforcement Cactus code that we had and the cosmetology Cactus code that we have. This is now covering all.
Right. Those are all dead. And if you try to submit them, you might get rejected. We did contact some of you because we had what we're calling ghost teachers this year. We had a few Cactus IDs that do not exist that got into student data. We don't know why, but it did happen. So yeah, write that down, sticky note it. There you go. Okay, yes.
That's what we would use like on our HC record as teacher's guidance.
Right. And remember, if you choose to go this way, this person does not get any educator salary adjustment. So just something to think about. If you're doing, if you get an LEA specific, then you get educator salary adjustment.
And then no other time, like we don't need to put this into Cactus.
No, you can't put it into Cactus. I will stop you. And I might call you and be like, what are you doing? So.
So we had some of our law enforcement, could we use that, that went away?
Yes, you use this one.
It's in the Utrecht spec.
There. Okay, so now I'm gonna be a big tattletale. We have, because I work in teacher and learning, we have teachers who are sending PII through Utah grants and Midas while they're working on micro credentials. Even though it says all over, do not send PII. Here first, remind your educators not to submit any student data through Utah grants or Midas, even though they may be using it to demonstrate a micro-credential. My other question is, do you want me to tell you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm happy to be the tattletale. I'll be like, Sam, so-and-so said this.
I won't even tell me told.
Yes.
So where I was gonna go is, because we can tell them we're blue in the face and they're still gonna do it. So when they do it, are you like slapping their hand?
I am slapping their hand,
Okay.
but my hand apparently doesn't.
Well, and then if you would tell us this. It's a chronic thing, you can, do job action or whatever, if it's just a reminder, then okay, it's done, but yes, please tell us so that.
Okay, and maybe I'll write my email to be a little meaner, like, do you want to end up on KSL? So, but yeah, that's, if you guys could remind them, because yeah, I don't know what to do. Okay, that was all I had. Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So just kind of a clarification on pre-K teachers, cactus IDs for PE purposes. So we've been having our pre-K teachers create a cactus ID. Our HR department doesn't want to go set up all the cactus stuff, but not always certified teachers or parapros.
Yes.
Or their instructors, but we want to be able to roster those. This is probably more of a question as well. Roster those pre-K teachers into PEEP, so our pre-K supervisor isn't doing all of the for
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, there are lots of times when there will be a teacher ID that doesn't have an assignment in Cactus. We have some LEAs that like they'll have a teacher come in after a certain point in the year and they don't put them into Cactus because they consider them a long-term sub. But you can get ESSA funding for your pre-K teachers if you get them on LEA specific, so. And that's up to 10 grand a year, almost 11.
Luckily though, then it's not a boring question. I do not handle PEEP. So Dallas Brooks, and I'm the person to ask about that. She handles PEEP.
All right, so big changes in assessment for next year. Our 9th and 10th graders are no longer going to be administered the Utah Aspire Plus assessment. All 9th and 10th graders are moving to RISE with our 3rd through 8th graders. So that's going to be a big change. I think a change for the better, but still a big change. RISE test is not timed like Utah Aspire Plus, computer adaptive. And I know a lot of LEAs test everybody Utah Aspire Plus in one day. I think this gives you a little more freedom to not have to just schedule everybody one whole day, all their tests. Since RISE is a course-based assessment, your 9th and 10th graders will now be taking course-based tests. So that is a huge difference. Not every 9th and 10th grader is going to be rostered for a test next year. It will depend on their courses. So what tests are they going to get? For 2027, we will have a spring summative for these courses: ELA 9, ELA 10, Sec Math 1, Sec Math 2, Earth and Space Science, Biology, Chemistry, Physics. I have a list upcoming of those courses. Here they are. These are the courses that will trigger rostering for the science tests. There is some discussion about whether we should include AP classes in these lists. That has not been decided yet. We're pushing up sort of towards a deadline. I should have, excuse me, I'll have complete core code lists for all the tests, for all the core codes that will roster test in June. So be looking out for those. So here's our timeline for next year. We'll have spring summatives for ELA 3 through 10. Sign all these tests. Scores for your 9th and 10th graders will be delayed. You won't be getting results for 9th or 10th graders until the fall. Luckily, 3rd through 8th, all good. You'll be getting those in the usual timeline.
That's for next year's test?
This is for next spring, yes. So actually, math scores will all come at the usual time. For 28, everyone should get their scores on time. And we'll be adding a secondary math 3 test in 2028 if the board approves it. And we should be having new math standards for 2028 also, if the board approves. All dependent on that. All right, so we will have resources coming for your parents. We have a few already available to you, but stay tuned. We'll have more resources for you to share out with your 9th and 10th grade families. Any questions about RISE for 9th and 10th grade student? All right, it's gonna be a big change. Questions? Yes?
Some years, our school doesn't do, some of our courses are not around.
Yes, so not for 2027. We're strictly spring summative in 2027. For 2028, we're looking towards the RISE test being more of an end of course assessment. So when your students finish in the fall, they'll be able to take a RISE test for that. Also, for our science test and Sec Math 3, your 11th and 12th graders are also welcome to take those tests. So more the merrier. They can take those tests with the 9th and 10th graders. Won't count in your accountability, but you can get those results for your 11th and 12th graders. One more update. There is a new core code coming for 6th grade language arts. And it's going to replace, just in the Acadians reading core code list, the current 6th grade language arts core codes. We're trying to separate middle school from elementary school. So just your elementary school students will roster for Acadians reading test. So here's what our core code lists look like for this year. For next year, those elementary model core codes will replace the ones in red. So if you want your elementary school 6th grade students to roster for Acadians reading next year, you'll need to use these new core codes. And this list will be published out on the assessment website in June with the rest of them. Yes?
Is there no longer a mathematics grade 6 core code?
That was just added on this list. That one's just a cleanup. That math one coming off the reading core code list. Also the Navajo, we don't teach that anymore. I just didn't notice it or take it off the list. That's my bad. So this is our new cleaned up list. That'll be coming in June.
Maureen?
Yes.
Can we, and when the slides are sent out, can we just get the link for links on that?
Oh, I haven't published them yet. The actual document has been published on our website yet. I'm waiting for those June 9th and 10th grade core codes to come out. And I'll put them all out. I'll let everybody know. I'll let your ADs know that they are published and ready to go. Any other questions? All right, that's it for me.
All right, so the multi-factor authentication, we got off onto a wrong foot with some of this earlier when I presented it, thinking that it was going to be the way that it was shown to me by my developers. So just to try to clear the air on that, first off, data gateway, it's been put to where it's just on hold. It's not going to happen. We don't have a time frame for you on that. So you don't need to worry about that part at all. For the SSID, however, to retouch back on that, it's not going to have a lot of the effects that I had initially, mentioned with having a Microsoft account and things like that. We've looked into it a lot deeper, and we've gotten a lot better understanding of what is actually going out to our external users versus what it is to be inside of USBE. As those are kind of two different things because we're already given a Microsoft account. That's why there is a miscommunication there. So just to make sure that that is cleared and that people aren't fearful about what's going to happen with that. Our goal for the SSID is still for that to be able to get into place for everyone, by the start of the school year. Most of this work's already done, and we should be able to start taking in, anybody who wants to go out and start testing it. I would say probably within a month. New school year is really just a little more than 2 months. So we'll reach out and let anybody know that is interested, that they can take part in the testing of the SSID if you would like. But so far, they've been pretty clean with the other applications. Go ahead.
Will our usernames be changing then too? Or no? Okay.
No, we're trying to keep it as clean as possible. You'll get an email, and basically that email is going to have you authenticate that email. And then the only other thing is going to be that you notice when you log in, it's going to be a slightly different initial screen that then is going to redirect, and it's going to have this understanding that you've already gone through this multi-factor authentication through the system. Good.
Is the goal eventually to have it all where we're just using the same authentication, have the same username and email for disparate systems, or?
The USIM's goal of creating a single sign-on, I would say is still solid, but it's not something that we're looking to do on the legacy systems. So the closest thing we're gonna have on that is what we have with like the data gateway, how that can authenticate you into some of the other applications. But for single sign-on, USIMs will be our answer for that. All right, so if there are any questions, again, I just want to make sure that everybody has that moment to be able to air it out, voice any concerns with the multi-factor. Go ahead.
So I guess, like for the SSID site, when it does roll out, what's going to be the user experience for the end user to enroll in the new? Like right now, I go to the login page, I enter my username, I enter my password, I'm in. So am I going to go enter my username, my password, and then it's going to say, oh, we need you to do this other thing as well and enroll in an FA of some kind? Or you mentioned something about an email that's going to come as a result of me trying to log in, or just one day it'll show up and I'll have to fill it out before I can log in? Like, what's that experience? Does that make sense?
It's music. That experience is going to be the email is going to be sent out when we roll out the implementation of it. And before that user then logs in, they'll need to use that email to do that authentication. And then with that, it's going to then essentially establish them with that new Azure behind the scenes setup of that's who's doing it. But again, it doesn't use any external accounts. It doesn't create any emails, none of that stuff. But it is going to be behind the scenes. You'll have that Azure security system that's actually doing that MFA protection for us. But in front, you're just going to see that login where you're going to see that SSID login. The login is normal. The password will still be maintained. I believe, this part may change with when we get it out for working with people, but the intent is for the passwords to not have to change, and that it'll still be their same passwords to be able to log in. And on login, it will ask you to make a new password.
And so that email is going to the email address that's tied to their SSID account.
Exactly.
So we have several users who all, in SSID, it has the same email. It's just a generic SSID@michigan.org. So that as goals change, whether LEAs are contacting, it's always the same email. So we're going to have 5 people get one email going to that Gruvia address. So how is that going to work for them?
Parents got
Figure that out later, don't worry about it today.
Okay.
That's my
As long as they can still log in when we need them.
I agree with you. I'm just letting you know as I had some conversations too, saying, don't we test this out because it's seamless, we're not watching it.
Okay.
Just like, the worry.
Aaron, this is Katrina. And just so you know, some of you have actually probably already experienced it. If you handle the budgets for your LEA and things like that because we've already rolled it out for MSP, the minimal school programs. So some of you have already experienced how the workflow will work as far as the MFA. So that's the first system that we've rolled out, and it's gone to production. So yeah, the email will come out. You will have to you'll go to the login page, which then will create the authentication within Entra ID Azure. And then from there, every time you log in after that, you would you'll go to that page, you'll sign in, but it will send you a confirmation email with a phone number. Or sorry, not a phone number, but with a number that then you would enter into the screen and then it'll pop you right into that application. Um, I hope that helps a little bit with that.
Yeah, that's great.
Also, there was a question about if you currently have a Microsoft account. They are completely separate. So if that LEA currently uses one, if they're an MFA shop already or a Microsoft shop, like Provo and Alpine and things like that, we have it set up where it will not even recognize your MFA, so you won't have to worry about that.
Yeah, the user accounts are strictly for the SSID email itself. Unless for some reason you've got a Microsoft account used as your SSID email, which I haven't seen that any of those exist. Then I don't think that there'll be any possibility of being associated to a Microsoft account externally. Go ahead, Keith.
With the SSID system, as I'm using it right now, it signs me out pretty quickly, like with any inactivity. I'm not gonna have to use MFA as frequently as I currently am signing in. Because that would be really annoying, to try and get work done if I have to do MFA like I can use it like 15 times in an hour easily and sign in very quickly. So I don't know if maybe the timeout could be adjusted a little bit on that, on the activity.
I'm gonna fall back on Aaron's answer, and that's I don't know yet. That one, there's a lot of old law legacy things which have actually dictated how the SSID was supposed to behave. A lot more scrutiny than a lot of our other applications. So I'll have to actually see if we can extend that window, or if that's still bound by something from the past that it is just going to make it uncomfortable. But if it is something I can change, by all means, I agree with you. And that's great feedback, that we should try to extend that out to where it's less painful and you're not having to constantly, give that extra number. Yep. Anybody else have any concerns or thoughts on the MFA? All right, thank you. All right, so an update for the Utah Fits All Scholarship. That if anybody's not familiar with it, just timeline wise, I'll try to speed through, but I wanted to make sure that everybody has all this for reference coming back to the spreadsheet for that again, Odyssey is the provider of that. This is a replacement from the previous year. We've had a great year with Odyssey, and we don't have any plans or intentions at this stage that I'm aware of for that changing. So if anybody does have any interactions with Odyssey that they want to share with us, positive or negative, we're happy to hear that feedback about the relationship with that vendor. And providing this, or you as an LEA provider working with them, just how that's going. As far as with what we're needing for working with this is, I believe it's still another slide over. Here we go. The numbers that you're going to be using for your school number when you have a student who is using UFA. That's the key point that I need to make sure is just kind of driven home and used for every instance, because if you don't do this, it causes a conflict in the system. That conflict is that we check for public enrollment for students, and that's a requirement for us, and a needed thing to make sure that funding is only going out once for a student. To do that, we're utilizing the use of one of the 900 series numbers that we've used in the past. But this one is the 993 school number. And what that means is that if you put that in, we know that you're putting that student in as a UFA student, and we're not going to then report back to UFA to say that there's a cross enrollment and they're no longer eligible for the scholarship. Which is what happens if we don't get that 993. If you just put them in, drop them into a regular school, they look just like a regular student to us, and then we have to send them back to Odyssey, and then Odyssey has to contact the parents, and then we get into that negotiation of, is this legitimate? Was this a mistake by the LEA's part of not putting the 993 on there? Or are they truly cross-enrolled and they need to not stay in the scholarship? So, go ahead.
Before we rolled out with the 993, I think we were initially just using the 995.
For private schools.
That's rostering.
Yeah.
For assessment.
Yeah, so the 993 will still allow them to go through for assessments, which UFA is intended to allow. So if you do have any intent to make sure that they still get their assessments, that shouldn't be hindered by using the 993. If you see any instances of that, please let us know. Go ahead.
But I want to say, okay, I just want to clarify to make sure I'm right.
Yeah.
993 is when we are providing services as a provider. A student is a UFA student, and they come to us strictly to take the RISE test, and that's it. We still use 995 or 990 depending on, right? So we're not providing any services, we're just trying to roster them into RISE. In that case, we're using 995 and 990 still.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Not for 995. That for rostering,
Yeah.
you would still put the UFA student in 995.
Yeah, that's the thing. Saying we don't use 993. All we're doing is rostering.
No, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. 993 is for UFA. Whether they're for rostering. 990 is for homeschool students and 995 is private. 993 is for UFA. I have a full document. Guys, share that I can send you with the rostering instruction that specifically does.
So accuracy, it's 100% what Maureen's saying. And she's definitely our best resource for that document. She's over that and kind of helps ensure that all of those assessments get out correctly. With the details about what happens if you do it wrong, I will still say that all of the 900 series do have a similar behavior in the system, that we're knowing that they're not public school students. So just as a general concept, it's at least covered with that, but it will affect other statistical things which we'd like to get right, and we'd like to have, them represented as accurately as possible. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my understanding is we're a UFA provider for our students taking various derivatives of the 993 code. When they come to us, a almost strictly UFA student that isn't taking things from our school comes to us and wants to take a test, we actually create it in the 993 code to roster persons.
Because we're 995 or 990. We don't have 993 at all because we're not a provider.
We don't provide any services at all. We don't. So,
Yeah, so
and that's what.
that's our question is, how do you know that they're a UFA student if you're not affiliated?
Ours, we ask them very specifically, are you a homeschool student or are you doing UM? Or both?
Good.
Where we have our home students. And yet, don't necessarily know because they don't keep contact with them for, several years, but we still roll them. I think it happened, because I still whatnot. But we are getting errors for them and other, I'm assuming this kid might be what a student. Because they aren't getting into like one of our online system, one of the schools. And they're running out. It was, can't remember the specific year, but my question is, if they are either homeschooled or in any of our schools during the year, but then they qualify for USA, do we have to like keep that enrollment out? I remember hearing something that they're gonna be enrolled in every year, so they wouldn't get that funding, or how does that work? And that enrollment is start then in 93.
Let me try to unpack that a little bit. So, and also for anybody who wasn't able to hear, I'm gonna try to summarize and bring me back into some of the earlier parts as needed. That the last part was, if the student is partially enrolled in your school, and then they're also partially enrolled with UFA, like what's the sort of behavior pattern that's expected in that scenario? And I think that I can hopefully clear that up with that if they're currently enrolled in public education, then they're ineligible for any UFA scholarship. And it's the same way that if they have any public education course, that makes them ineligible. So even if it's homeroom, that still will make them ineligible to receive the UFA scholarship. So that's why it's very critical with those instances where we do find that there is a cross enrollment, that you try to work with the parents on that, work with your potential IT team to decide, is this legitimate? Are we finding out that this is a UFA student and that we're just wanting to give them an assessment or something else? Or are they legitimately taking courses at your school? And if they are legitimately taking courses at your school, it's critical that we don't put them as the 993 unless you're the provider that's authorized to give a UFA course. So now let me touch base again. Does that cover your question, or is there any areas you want me to swing back on?
They were, and I don't know how.
Yeah.
But what if they were like attending their scholarship and were enrolled with one of our school board homeschool? And they, got accepted and they were in our homeschool program, whatever they were doing. And then now they're taking courses within the, more UFA providers. What would I do in that case?
Talk to the parent. Choice of enrollment. Yeah, so if they're in a pending state, it means that they're looking, what do they want to do? Where do they want to go? And they're putting the feelers out there. So if they make a decision, that's a decision that means they go one direction or another direction. And we don't want to ever auto make that choice for them. We always want the choice of enrollment to stay with the parent if they want to stay in public or.
But from the UTREX perspective, you need to exit the enrollment if it's not a non-993 swing. If you find out from the parent that they are doing.
If you find out that they're going to pick the UFA, then yes, you need to exit them.
Like just the day we decided, it's okay for them to have been.
Yes. Yeah, we don't have any restrictions with UFA. If somebody were to leave public education mid-year and there were still UFA funds and availability to put them into the scholarship, then they can still come in and get, that partial scholarship for the remaining part of the year that's available out there for them. So there isn't any hard restrictions like that of if you were in at all in the school year, then you're out. All right, so if there's any other of those questions, please reach out, let me know about these details. Again, responsibility is between you, the parent, and the student to make sure that you negotiate out what their choice is and you get it in the system, represented back to us to where they don't lose any of the benefits and they can stay where they want to stay. Again, there's a couple more slides here to go into details on it, but we're low on time, so I'm gonna just kind of keep moving through. Here's some links as far as with the legal references that can help with understanding how you work as a provider or how the program works overall, or even where do I go to find out more about Odyssey? Or how do we represent them from USBE? The next area that I wanted to bring up, again, and I'll try to speed through this, and hopefully that this will make a lot of sense for a lot of you, as we've got a lot of more technical minded people here today, that we're making updates to the examine file to make it easier for you to understand. What we're doing is we're taking things which helped relate the data better from one tab to the next tab. And we've got a list of those that we've gone through and added things in, such as the course membership. We added in the statewide student identifier, the SSID, and the entry date. So that's going to help you from the course membership file, from that tab, know your answers without having to cross-relate the tabs together. And that's the theme that I've got going here. So the I2 record, again, we've done the SSID, the entry date, and then also the incident date, bringing those over from other tabs as just a external reference, but makes it easier for when you're looking at that one tab to know what you need to know. The Scram record as well too, the SSID and entry dates have been added in to help associate. The youth in care, same scenario. And then all of these tables, the student transcripts, each of them, and then the S5 record, all have had the SSID added to them to where it's more relatable and more cohesive when you work with this. Go ahead.
Can I make a request? Can you add the student name to every tab that has student specific data? There's a lot of times where I'm on an S2 record, who is this kid, number, like, there's a lot of times I wish there's a name was on the S2 tab or the S3 or whatever. That could be helpful.
It's a good consideration, and we'll take that as a consideration and we'll be able to let you know. I can't give any commitments at this point with priorities with the conversion over into the new system of USIMS. I'm not sure how much of the additional work we're going to be able to squeeze in, but we definitely appreciate that feedback and that thought, and we'll keep it noted. Go ahead.
Tell me if this isn't the right time for this, but summer EBT, that program is not being implemented this year, is that correct? And
yeah.
Are we not gonna have the S5 data submitted anymore? Are we keeping it around just in case?
I think that that's a good question that we'll probably want to swing back to you on after talking to Tammy. And I believe that last I'd heard, she said that we were going to keep it going. But that is definitely something she'll be aware of.
So that it was gonna be a data pull in March, so it didn't matter if it was finalized, during our year.
But the S5 record is not necessarily going away yet. That decision hasn't happened.
Okay.
So when it does, we'll make sure you know.
The summer EBT is fun.
Yeah, the
That's
actual
the
program, yeah.
At least for this conference.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
ESI data, I talked about this at the last one, that we had 9 new fields and that those are intended to be ready for the next school year. Again, because of time, I'm going to kind of speed through this since I talked about this in the last month, but these are all going to be on the I2 record, the emergency safety intervention fields. And Willie's also going to be talking about this right after me because we don't have the spec up to date yet with all these. I've re-put back in these details here for you for all the XPath mappings and all those details for reference for each one of those. So come back to that when you're needing to go in and put these into the system. And any last questions before I hand off to Willie? All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Hey y'all, I am going to talk about incident data updates, and hopefully I can go through the information here. I do not promise I have all the answers, but let's start with legislative updates. You may have heard about Senate Bill 51, school safety modifications. There's not a lot of details right now, so I cannot really answer questions on this, but what I can say is there are two main components. And the UTREX, or at least the student information systems, it'll be expected to uh, create or at least collect if a student is a credible threat. It'll probably look like a Boolean value or something like that. So we'll get the specifics down a little bit more in detail. And then the other part of this bill asks LEAs to report student threat information from the result of a threat assessment or behavior threat assessment. Some of you may have heard of the CSTAG model, which is that comprehensive student threat assessment guidelines. And so these bullets are pulled from the bill itself, like what's the nature and the content of this credible threat, the name of the student, any safety images, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into all the detail. Again, what does this look like? Working with the school safety center team right now, and we're anticipating maybe like some border rule or some more specifics later. But this is up and coming, so just start preparing your admin to build out build out that credible threat flag, and then the Qualtrics form, we will give more updates on that, but at least let your LAs know that they should be collecting that information because they'll be expected to report on that. Regarding incident data, just wanted to give you a bigger picture again. Some of the stuff I will be talking about, I have repeated, but just a reminder, incident data is required to be reported due to 53E-3-516. And it's then put out in the annual school discipline and law enforcement action report. Eventually, it'll also go to the school safety dashboard. And if you all remember, the past few years, other and disruption have been the most reported past incident. And so leadership and legislators wanted more clarity on like, well, what is other? What is disruption? Like, what are these? Because that's almost about 50%. And so after much feedback and worked with some of y'all in some work groups, we took the feedback and some of the recommendations, and we deprecated some codes, and we added and expanded those codes to hopefully provide more clarity on what other and disruption is. And we also added the incident association I2 appendix to look up definitions and resources. So when educators are being trained in entering incident data, what does robbery mean versus what's the difference between robbery versus larceny? And robbery is with a threat or intimidation, right? So again, this was mentioned the last time, but forgot to mention that again, sexual assault has been removed. You will be receiving a fatal error, I believe, if you punch in 02. But forgot to mention that when you do get that fatal error, just change it to 06 sexual harassment, because again, sexual assault falls under the federal definition of sexual harassment. This was the following the recommendation of our students' family rights specialist. And as a reminder, again, to help provide that clarity, we've expanded the infraction codes. These are all now active, and they should be taking. So I think Stephanie, was that right? You should be happy because I know Cash, y'all said y'all had quite a few of the errors, and so they should finally be going through.
That's Stacy from Cash.
Sorry, Stacy. I'm getting my names confused. Any questions so far?
No questions in the room.
Great. Oh, and this was just a reminder, we have that
instead of association appendix. Let me know if you see any typos. I'll work with Melissa and data privacy to update those because and there will be some changes. So ESI data fields, I'm going to provide a little bit more additional context besides the CIF codes. So I just want to clarify, in case it wasn't clear last time. Currently in UTREX, USBE accepts physical restraint and seclusion. And then if y'all remember, when Senate Bill 170 came out last year, it added 6 fields and we put them in the specs. But what happened is we got some feedback from LEAs because we were collecting this data in Qualtrics. And to reduce the reporting burden, we are actually going to add 3 more ESI data fields for a total of 9. Now, these 3 additional ESI data fields, they are not added in the specs right now. So only 6 of the 9 new fields are currently in UTREX. So once the UTREX specs are updated this summer, you will see all 9. So I just want to clarify, there's 2 currently be collected, 6 were added, and now 3 more, look out for 3 more. And so where I'm going with this is LAs that some of you already were really awesome and you were proactive and you already built some of the ESI fields, but there are 3 more that you need to build. That is what I'm trying to communicate. So just double check with me if you have any questions on that. LEAs who...
Only we have a question.
Cool, let me finish the slide and I'll get that question. LEAs will be expected to provide these new fields in their SIS or enter the ESI data in the Qualtrics form if it's not built out in the SAS. So what are your questions?
So the question is, will the 3 additional ESI fields be added for the next school year, 2027?
Yes.
Or is it before the submission, the year-end submission?
Or, so beginning of school year or end of school year?
I do not, well, actually, Cliff, let me see if I'm getting this correct. Y'all, we are building it out right now. So we definitely anticipate by this next school year, but probably not the end of the school year. Am I correct on that?
I think the intent would be that we don't want to disrupt anything for the current school year. So we made purpose, we want to actually pull up on please.
Please do. I think the question is though, for school year 2027, would it be released, by August or mid-school year?
With the new school year, day 1, that'll be.
Okay. Yep, Steve.
So for the current school year, these additional 3 fields, there's no requirement to report them in UTREX or Qualtrics.
No, they're required
In Qualtrics, yes.
So we have to fill the Qualtrics form no matter what.
Yes.
You can't do these 3 UTREX. Have to do.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want.
And does UTREX accept the 6? I know the 3 are still in the middle of the summer. Do they accept the 6 at the moment, or will they have to be reported through the Qualtrics?
The 6 you're referring to are the 6 fields?
The 6 initial.
Yeah, all 9 are expected to actually be able to be received and you'll be able to get, a message back on them, by the end of the school year. You can't say exactly when, as I said, we are in the progress of it, and with this behavior of that if we send something that doesn't exist yet, it just gets ignored. It doesn't care, it doesn't have anything, so if you start sending it now, just to see if any response on it. But when you do start sending it, we are able to actually catch it. Then you're gonna actually see that there's some response there, and it'll know that we're actually getting it. However, we're not going to do it with it if you send any test information started this school year. Or that's at least the current discussion of agreement that we aren't going to ask for you to give us that real data between now and July 1st.
So Qualtrics, no matter what, next school year UTREX and Qualtrics, and this year UTREX, it's still it's probable, but we don't know for sure. Any other questions?
How long are we intending to use the Qualtrics for?
Willie, did you hear that?
I think you said, how long is the Qualtrics intended to be used for?
Yes.
From my understanding is as soon as those fields are in your SIS, you do not have to use the Qualtrics form. I could be wrong, but no more than next year. It should be done by next year because the expectation is that it will be in the SIS by then. Hopefully that was more clear.
Yeah.
But regardless, whether it's being entered in Utrex or Qualtrics or whatever, the expectation is to collect that data since it's now mandated.
Is it either or do they have to do both?
Oh, I see. No, my understanding from the conversation is once you've got it in your SIS, and when we can receive that, you should not be needing to do the Qualtrics form because that Qualtrics form that's just double work.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
Last month's meeting, for just the first 6 fields, I thought it was said that like by the end of the week or whatever, the SIP napkin would be available. I'm looking at the spec right now and they're still not there.
No, that's why I had it on the last slide, that last set. It's still there. That's what we want to go on. We have a delay in between actually publishing out new specification tables. So fortunately, that may be a thing that keeps just relying on what was that. I don't know what the publication for July.
Yeah, I believe Melissa only does those twice a year, so they wouldn't be updated again until before the new school year.
Problem getting the residents to develop the 9 new fields if it's not using the best, like that's.
Yeah, because we'll develop them wrong.
Okay, so we should work with Melissa to get TPs early. Publication of the next specs.
We have found that if we do a big word of mouth and then the Utrecht specs come out and they're different than what we did. Yeah, because we've made that. We want to see it in writing what you SBE is going to require. Then we will go.
It is in writing compliant.
Right.
It doesn't, that's not, that's considered being.
There is that slide, yeah, what's on the slide will be exactly what it's that. You know, but there's been times where what's on the slide and what's on the spec. I mean, it may be a minor difference, but it's still different.
And when you're coding and working with a vendor, it takes time, and if there's little things that need to be changed, it's months. So we need to get it right the first time. And I'm trying to hedge our bets with our vendor.
We tried to get a jump on the incident thing at Power School, and then we had errors most of this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, we really have it. This is exactly what we're doing, and then we can go to our vendors and, okay, we can expect more.
I think that's valid. We'll try to make that happen. That'd be great.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Willie, do you have more?
Yeah, so I wanted to provide a little bit more nuance to those 9 fields. And as y'all had stated, right, and as I stated too, 6 of them are already in the Utrecht specs. So when the latest update happens this summer, there's a few things to watch out for. Again, due to the LEA feedback to help reduce reporting burden. And it won't change entirely, but there's going to be some things that you will need to ask your vendor to do. So one of the feedback we got was when we created oh, no, thank you. Keep on this for a bit. The ESI purpose and the ESI outcome, it was originally only to select one value. But when LEAs were entering the information in Qualtrics, they started selecting other a lot, and we were like, why? And they let us know we need to have an option that allows us to select more than one option. And that's going to be for the ESI purpose and ESI outcome. So those 2 ESI data fields if you've already built it in your system, you need to check to see if if it can allow now select all that apply. So, ESI purpose is an immediate danger to the student and is an immediate danger to the adult can be sent. And same thing with the ESI outcome. That also needs to be a select all that apply. Now, originally it was listed in the UTREC specs as just a one value field, but it needs to be select all that apply.
This is a perfect example of where what we implemented in the Utrecht specs was incorrect.
Did that make sense, Willie?
Yes.
Can you repeat that?
This is an example of how what was implemented that was shared either through slides or meetings was different than what was put in the spec.
I would rephrase that a little bit. What happened was we put it in and it was correct. But what happened was as the school year went on, we got a lot of very good feedback and constructive feedback from LEAs trying to improve the process through the Qualtrics. And so then we modified it. So it wasn't wrong per se. We just made it a better use of reporting. So that's how I would actually say it. It wasn't wrong at the time.
To any comfort, I could say that the development work is basically that already. So what I've shown is already, past peer review and it's ready peer review production. So I can't say that there isn't a possibility of, as Will was just saying, that we really constantly evolve where administration and people involved ask for anything involved. And you get asked for something, I can say that I'm not gonna take on any work after school year, so I won't be paying for that. Yeah.
And it feels like the time how to really receive multiple values.
That sounds like I would mistake. I don't feel like the one was there after. We'll get that.
And the first book is not banned.
That was the mistake. One character. Mistake. So starts at home, like 50 will. We're gonna have like
They would have all share the things for the state. And they're building they would just wait and we all apply it. That how
yes, that's the intent.
yeah, I think we need more description of how this structure would be set to us through the, I don't understand it from reading from towards.
Yeah, so it sounds like Willie, LEAs are asking for, and it probably needs to be done that when this is accepted in UTREX, it needs to be in the spec.
Right,
Or
so we on the next round of updates, it will add
if
the
it's
select.
before that. So if this is going to be accepted like this year end, we would need to work with Melissa to get it in the spec by then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I will work with Cliff and Melissa on that.
Perfect.
And then the last part, this one doesn't change the collection structure at all if you've already built it. I just wanted to let y'all know that the meaning has changed. So originally, before we had the LEA feedback, the part in legislation said the number of minutes the ESI was in effect. And then we got good constructive feedback from LEA saying, you know what, does this mean we have to enter in an incident every single time an ESI was used? And that, especially again, as we've seen with the Qualtrics survey, that is a big reporting burden. So we've decided to change the meaning so that it's now the total time in minutes still that all ESIs were applied. So if a physical restraint was used for 10 minutes and then a second physical restraint was used for 5 minutes, 10 plus 5, enter in 15. So structurally, it doesn't change anything. It's just the meaning has changed. These 3 ESI data fields are the ones that I said they are not in the UTREC specs. and they will be added for the new school year. Again, these three were developed from feedback from LEAs. So because now we're having that summation of the total amount of time in ESI or multiple ESIs were used, and then it's now expected to report the number of physical restraints or the number of seclusions. That way you don't have to enter an incident every single time. And then also report were any of these exceeding 30 minutes. Did I hear the question?
Incidents per day, Willie?
One more time?
The question is, but it's for incidents per day.
Students, you may have them every day.
I will say that I understand ESI data is complex, and I understand sometimes ESIs are used multiple times throughout the day, and it could be from the same, for the lack of a better, triggering thing that created this string. So that would probably be an LEA policy, but the expectation is, let's say an incident occurs in first period, and then an ESI was needed. And maybe if the ESI had to continue to the next period, that's still considered one incident, right? So that's one incident record. But then let's say now the students calm down, they don't need to have an ESI anymore, there's lunch, and let's say it's the end of the class period or end of the day, and it's the last class of the day, and now you have a different stimulus that involves the student you need to use an ESI. If that is according to your LA policy, that may be a second incident, and then yes, that would be a new incident record. So that's just one example. Again, every ESI interaction is really different, right, for every student. These are really complicated, so I can't really say for sure, like for everything, but that's just a possible example. So I hope that kind of makes sense.
Kind of. Okay, any other questions? Okay, Willie, do you have anything else?
I think, was this the last slide? Okay. No, yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I know the ESI stuff has been really complicated, and the incident data has, we're a little bit slow on the rollout, but we appreciate your patience on everything. So please feel free to reach out, and glad to help answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Willie. Hey, Erin, do you want to wrap up? Okay, thank you everyone for coming, especially those that traveled to be here. It's really nice to see everyone's faces in person. Again, our next meeting is in May. That will be in preparation for the year-end UTREX submission. So that will be on Zoom, and we hope to see you then. And all of the slides and recordings will be emailed out. Thank you, everybody.